Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore. How are you doing through all of, through this unprecedented time around the globe? I hope you are handling your quarantine well and doing well in spite of all this. I know for myself, I've binge watched a lot of shows. As a matter of fact, binge watched Tiger King. I know that Tiger King, a lot of people were, oh, Tiger King. What I really loved it, and I love the Dax Shepard and Ed Norton were debating about who would make the best Tiger King. I actually think Michael Keaton. I know Michael Keaton's been suggested. If they do a movie of Tiger King, I think that he would be awesome. This is going to be a special episode of the Film Threat Podcast, which I hope will distract you and help you as we all sit in quarantine. I'll be inviting on managing editor of Film Threat, Alan Ng, to talk about, we'll be talking about South by Southwest. We'll talk about movies that are coming out to VOD. And let me just add him here.
Here I am.
Hey, good to see you, Alan.
How's it going, Larry?
Hey, awesome. So glad. Okay, so glad you could make it. So this is something we're trying out some new pieces of software here. So we are not physically in the same space.
No, we are. I'd say we're about 30 miles apart.
That's about as socially distant as you can get. But we're going to be doing a lot of podcasts like this now, so that we can bring on guest filmmakers, so we can talk to other people from Film Threat, like yourself, Alan, and we can discuss, maybe distract a little bit from what's happening in the world. But we hope that you are safe and practicing all the social distancing and keeping yourself healthy. I, for one, am wearing a mask when I go out shopping. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah, my wife really wants me to. So I think now I'm seeing more and more people do it. So I'm going to go and follow the peer pressure and start doing that.
I think you have to. But Alan, you and I were all set. You and I were set to go to South by Southwest.
Yeah, I was so excited to go too.
Yeah, it was going to be your second year. I've gone many times in the past, on and off, to South by when I'm able to. It would be your second time. I know what I love is that you figured it out. You basically go to one of the draft houses and you just live there.
Yep. Yeah, you get all your meals.
Yeah.
You have a desk, so I can put my iPad on top of it, my keyboard, and take notes. I can get a lot of work done. It's beautiful. The only thing is, you got to eat the draft house food, which isn't bad, but
come on, the draft house food is great.
It is, but this year I was anticipating going to as many barbecue places as I possibly could, and which I didn't do last time.
Well, you missed out. But you and I both saw a lot of movies from South by Southwest, we should talk about them. One I'm not sure that you saw that I thought was amazing was Insert Coin by Joshua Tsui.
I didn't. I know Anthony reviewed it, but I did not see that one yet.
I'm a big fan. First of all, a longtime gamer, right? And just love video games from way back in the day. But like this talked about the development of Bally Midway, which is this company that did video games like NBA Jam and Mortal Kombat. And it talked about like the development of these games and how they did it with really unsophisticated technology, which was pretty cool. So I really enjoyed that. I know that we're going to get Joshua on the podcast because I talked to him over on Twitter, and we're going to talk about Insert Coin. But you saw a lot more South by Southwest films than I did. So what stood out to you? I'm really curious.
Well, one of them that really struck me, and it's one I didn't review, but it was for MADMEN only, the Del Close story. I've been doing improv comedy for almost 30 years now. And so I'm certainly familiar with Del Close, and I actually took a class at IO at one point. But it's just it was just one of the most craziest documentaries I've seen about a comedian. And the thing is that it's so deadly serious. It's not a funny documentary, but it's about a guy who's just so intense about the art, and just the fact that everyone he's ever associated himself with, ever taught, ever been in partnership with has gone on to do great things in the comedic world, and he's always been left behind, and kind of left behind as this kind of a misunderstood, crazy madman.
Well, I would say that comedians know who Del Close is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know I did a show at IO West for about a year. I did my podcast live there, and then I performed in an improv comedy group called Comic Book Live. I was not very good. I was the weak link in all of those things. But it was, I mean, I think just having that improv experience, but he really, I mean, Del Close isn't just a comedian and a writer, but he's also someone who invented the rules of improv, right? He invented like the Herald. He invented, the sort of, at least giving it a loose format. So there were rules, and of course the rules were made to be broken, but most of the talent that you see from, everything from Second City, from Saturday Night Live, like they all came from his teachings at it was originally called the Improv Olympics. And in the movie, which is sort of I really love the movie because it's sort of part documentary, but it's also part narrative. And they mix in James Urbaniak, who's a voice actor and a character actor who's been in a lot of things.
And a dead-on lookalike.
I didn't realize how much he looked like Del Close. I mean, they did some makeup on him. But he really looked amazing. Like, so James kind of plays Del Close, but I didn't realize how much drug addiction and just a personal drama plagued him. It really, and mental illness. So he struggled with mental illness, drugs, and so many things. Just to sort of create, like, what came from that was almost everyone we know in modern comedy that's significant.
Yeah, I mean, even as far back as Nichols and May was incredible. And then the other thing I thought was interesting was he was in the Untouchables.
Oh, wow. And also he did a comic book. God, I'm trying to remember because I used to buy that comic book.
Oh,
and it was like an anthology comic. What's that? Yeah, Wasteland. It was Wasteland was like this weird. It was from Vertigo Comics, which is like a subsidiary of DC, and it was kind of an anthology comic of weird stories, just sort of, from his head. But that was a big standout at South by.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Did you review that?
No, I didn't. In fact, when we were doling out all the screeners, I knew I wanted to see this one, and then I realized, I gave it to someone else. But I'm glad.
You should have reviewed it.
I feel like as an improviser, and I have specific opinions about the Herald and about that whole improv community and culture. That I think I know that I would have given it a completely unbiased review. I did enjoy it though, and it explains a lot about Del Close and like I said, it's weird to see, like, Dave Thomas, one of my favorite comedians. He had some very strong and stern things to say about Close himself, and I'm like, wow, I've never seen Dave Thomas this serious before.
Right. Well, it's weird because you're seeing a lot of these, comedians in ways we've never seen them, but just knowing kind of where they came from, I think was pretty amazing. So absolutely. I know that you had a write-up on the Film Threat website, actually, a sort of wrap-up of South by Southwest. There are a lot of movies there. What else stood out to you? Yeah,
one of the, I mean, it's rare that I kind of agree with the jury prize, but Shithouse is what won the best narrative jury prize of South by Southwest, and it is a really good movie.
Wow.
It's not what I expected it to be, but it's pretty incredible in the way it just kind of plays out. But it's about a guy who basically goes to college, leaves home, goes to college, and basically is kind of a wallflower in college. His roommate hates him. He tries to spark a conversation. In fact, his stuffed animal dog talks to him and tells him that he needs to talk to his roommate, and it just goes badly. And then he winds up going to a party where he runs into his RA, and she kind of invites him to go back to her place after the party. They wind up having bad sex, and then then what is it? Then he finds out her turtle died, and so they go off somewhere on campus to bury the turtle, and he kind of gets her to give to mourn and find grief, go through the stages of grief with this turtle, and then they finally have good sex later in the early morning, and then she kicks him out and then ghosts him basically, and
so it sounds like a Tinder date. It sounds like
exactly.
a typical Tinder, bad sex and ghosting. That's what it's about.
Yeah. And it's him just trying to reconnect with this girl. And then through the process, he not to give a whole lot of it away, but to kind of begin to enjoy his college experience from that point. And it turns out to be has a happy ending. And
sounds like one of those things where it's like the events of it don't really matter. It's more about the tone. Like last year, I know that you and I were both raving about Greener Grass.
Yeah.
I mean, you raved about it in particular. I didn't see it until after South by Southwest, but wow, that movie just blew my mind. Greener Grass comedy that did really well. It's from IFC, and it's two women directors, and it's one of those that defies description, because I remember you telling me about Greener Grass and going, I have no idea what you're talking about. Then you see the trailer. You should just look up the trailer.
The trailer doesn't even help.
The trailer doesn't help either, but the trailer at least gives you a taste of what the tone is for Greener Grass, which I thought was fantastic. So it sounds like,
yeah. I should mention that's on Hulu right now.
Oh, Greener Grass is?
Yeah, so you can check it out for free if you have Hulu.
Oh, awesome. Cool. But yeah, like I feel that really is the way it is for a lot of these indie movies that we tend to champion. Is you really need to see them to believe them, especially in the case of Greener Grass. I don't know about Shithouse, but I do like the title.
Yeah. Yep.
What else did you see at South by Southwest that impressed you?
Yeah, another one that I didn't review, and I think you mentioned. I know you read Alex's review on it, but it was for Single. It was a short film.
Oh, I did see Single.
Oh, you did?
My God. Oh, it's such a great short. Did that win Best Short?
No, it didn't.
I love that movie. You saw it as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so good. It's about a date. This girl and this guy, and they get together, and both of them have
like she was born with half an arm,
right?
And then she gets put on a date, kind of a blind date by her friend. And you know how when you set people up on blind dates, you try to find people who have something in common with them.
Right.
And they set her up with a guy who I guess had lost most of his fingers on one of his hands in I think it was a saw accident or something like that, or some mechanical accident. And she just flips because, that's the reason why they set her up.
But what I like about it is it doesn't, when there's a really good documentary about disability in film that was directed by Jenny Gold called Cinemability, which is about how disabilities have been portrayed and disabled people, I know something about this, are the largest group, the largest sort of minority group, one would say, right? They're the largest group. And disability has been portrayed in movies since the very beginning of film. I mean, Thomas Edison, one of his first films was about a guy who had no legs, right? But the way that this is portrayed, it's not pandering. It's not done with a person who's not disabled playing disabled. I always like, that always would bother me when I would see someone like a film like Forrest Gump or some of these others where someone plays someone who's mentally challenged. Yeah. And it's just, I find it so pandering, or give me an Oscar. I've always despised those kind of performances. But in this, I mean, both of the actors have the disability, but they're talking about it blatantly. It's also highly entertaining. And the weird thing about it too is the girl that's in it, she's really attractive. She's actually really, she's hot. I'm sorry. There's no two ways about it. She's hot. She just happens to have, half an arm, and sort of she's going about her day and kind of how she deals with it. But it's not done in a way that how it's often portrayed, which is, I believe, pandering and annoying. Yeah. I really like that film. It's Single.
Single.
15-minute short, fantastic. And what's weird is whenever I see a short that's over 10 minutes, I go like, over 10 minutes, we'll see. But it totally holds up. I feel like that could be a feature because
or
the way
it could be
ended,
an episodic even.
yeah, just something I really, first of all, that actress is fantastic who was in Single. I know the reviews on the Film Threat website, so you could check it out.
Definitely check it out.
Just go to filmthreat.com, check out the review of Single from South by Southwest. But wow, that is one of the best shorts I have seen in a long time, not just from South by Southwest. So what else from South by Southwest really impressed you?
Oh, yeah, the one that I saw also was Critical Thinking. It was directed and stars John Leguizamo.
Oh, I never saw that. That was on my must-see list. What was that? How was it?
It was good. It's your typical, a teacher trying to change the students who live in a rough neighborhood, and they find something like whether it's art or film or poetry, and this one it's chess, and so I guess I believe it. I want to say it took place in Miami, but it may not be Miami. But a teacher who struggled hard to put together a critical thinking class, which was basically a class about teaching chess and understanding strategies of chess. And that class, their team went on to win the national high school chess championship in Los Angeles. But it was that struggle to, one, get there because they had no money. So, other than the class, no one was funding them. So they had to do creative ways of raising money. And then at the same time, it was trying to live beyond their destiny, so to speak. One kid, these kids for the most part probably would have ended up in gangs, end up dead on drugs or whatever. And it was this teacher who was encouraging them that, look, you're amazing at chess. That right there should tell you that you have more of life ahead of you than you realize, and that you need to kind of grab onto that. Yeah. But yeah, it was good. As far as those teacher student type movies are, it was a pretty good movie, and chess I found was interesting.
Well, I just like John Leguizamo a lot.
Yeah.
I think that he's fantastic. So
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious about that one.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else from South by Southwest that stood out? And here's what's disappointing is I know that you and I had been keeping in communication when this pandemic crisis was little by little emerging and getting more and more serious by the day. And there was talk of they should cancel South by because it's over 100,000 people flying into Austin, Texas from all over the world. And they made the right decision and canceled the event. It would have further spread the virus, although I have no idea why planes are even flying now unless they're for essential personnel. It's and we'll see. I mean, this is a developing thing, right?
Yeah.
But I do feel for the filmmakers who had movies that were going to premiere. I mean, I know that the Tribeca Film Festival also was canceled.
Yeah, we were just covering the Annapolis Film Festival just because they decided to do a virtual film festival, and so they I guess they use your location on your computer, and they would show features, but you had to download the software, and then if you weren't within 60 miles of Annapolis or in the Maryland or DC area, you couldn't watch any of the films. But that was their way of kind of keeping their audiences in touch, their patrons in touch, and to be able to show basically, how we get screeners all the time. That's essentially what they're getting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's sort of like even like what we're doing now. I mean, here, we're doing a podcast. Normally we would always do a podcast in person. That was always my whole thing was I love having conversations with people, especially about movies, because movies is a way to talk about any topic. I saw Contagion recently. So me and a lot of other people, and that movie is, I feel like, a vision of our future. Unfortunately, I feel like, and the world will be changed after this. I was watching another podcast. They were talking about how travel is going to change, that you're likely going to have a card that's going to, you'll have to prove that you've had like a COVID-19 shot or a flu shot. I get the flu shot every year. Especially before I go to Sundance. because I just don't want to get sick, right? Because it's going to Sundance, you come back, you get sick, and then it's, Sundance stretches from, rather than 7 days of your life, it's 14 or more.
Yeah, that was my experience. It was 7 days. 3 of those days was fighting just the altitude and the cold,
and being sick.
really, yeah. And then it wasn't the 4th day that I started to feel normal.
Right. Well, you know who feels sorry for you? Nobody, because you got to go to Sundance.
I know, that's
so. Quit your complaining.
2 festivals this year that I've been.
I didn't go. But the whole thing is that I love having conversations with people in person. So this is kind of new and weird for me. Yeah. So I hope that our audience listening or watching this on the Film Threat YouTube channel can kind of get used to this, that this will be our new normal, that I think for at least the foreseeable future that we will be doing podcasts in this format. And I'm still figuring out the technical aspects of this. So I hope that our audience will be patient. I hope they'll be patient with the sound quality, but I always love, it's my favorite thing to do is just have conversations about movies. That's why I love going to conventions. San Diego Comic-Con, we don't know. We've done panels at San Diego Comic-Con together many times, Alan, and we don't know if SDCC is going to happen in 2020. San Diego Comic-Con could very well be canceled and or delayed. They've talked about WonderCon possibly being rescheduled for the fall in Anaheim. I've always said they should just rename it San Diego WonderCon and just do San Diego WonderCon. Just do it, combine the events into one big thing and do it that way. But this is the way that we're going to be doing the podcast in the foreseeable future. So I appreciate now you and I can have, because we have conversations about movies anyways, when we're just we're just on the phone. Oh, did you see that? Oh, I did. Oh, cool. I got to check that one out.
I know there's so much. There's so much stuff, not only on streaming, but on VOD. Most, I think you saw Bloodshot just at the theater.
I saw Bloodshot. It was that and Invisible Man were the two films in the theater. The last, that's what I saw. But I really liked Bloodshot. I don't know, I know a lot of people whiny, complaining, it's not Marvel. It's not Marvel. Yeah. And if you know anything about, look, DC comics are different in tone from Marvel comics. Marvel comics, I think, are more family friendly. They're skewed a little younger. I think Valiant comics have always been more grown up, more adult, more real world. And when you look at DC had their heyday starting in the late 30s, 40s. The heyday of Marvel Comics was in the 60s, really, and 70s. And I think the heyday and the launch of Valiant was in the 90s. And I feel like they have very different feels, these comics. So I happen to really enjoy Bloodshot. I gave it my review is on Film Threat. You can read it. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's, when you look at did anyone think when the first Iron Man came out that movie was going to lead to 20 plus films and a big saga? No one knew that. And I feel like with Bloodshot, it's they gave you just enough to show that there's a larger world, and that's all you needed. And they introduced a character, and I don't know. I've always liked Vin Diesel. He's in a lot of bad movies, but I like him. I think I was mentioning that now you can watch it online. Oh, right. Yeah. Now you can see Bloodshot and Invisible Man and
Onward.
Emma. Yeah. Onward came out. So
we're gonna get Rise of Skywalker pretty soon. So
yeah. All of that stuff. But what's interesting. Well, Rise of Skywalker did come out on VOD.
Yeah, and it's on. Yeah, if you're gonna go to the store today, you can find it.
If you're gonna go to a store. Well, I will admit I did buy it because there was a special. It was $3 off a future purchase. So I bought the Rise of Skywalker, and even though I dislike that movie, I'm a completionist. I have to have all 9 of the movies, which I now have all 9. It's terrible. The movie does not hold up. It's even worse than when I saw it in the theater. Yeah. There's one great extra on the Rise of Skywalker in the extras, which is a 2-hour sort of legacy making of all 9 films that kind of focuses on the making of Rise of Skywalker, sort of mixed with the making of the original trilogy. Footage I have never seen before of Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, and Mark Hamill. So for the 2-hour documentary behind the scenes making of, I will say it's worth, if you can get it when you rent. I don't know if you get it if you rent it, somehow see that 2-hour documentary. The 2-hour documentary was well worth it because it's so much stuff, but they always lean into that. They always lean into like, here, look at, remember, it's member berries. Remember this, remember that, member berries.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know.
well, I'll say this about Rise of Skywalker. My daughter has only seen the last 3 and Phantom Menace. After seeing Rise of Skywalker, she loved it so much that she says, "Okay, I'll watch the whole thing with you." And we were going to do it this summer, but for all intent and purpose, it's summer now, so we'll probably be watching it soon.
Yeah,
but it got her into it, and and then also on filmthreat.com right now, we have an interview with Neil Scanlon, who did the puppetry for the last 3 Star Wars films, and so he talks about working with JJ, and the one weird piece of trivia, but Maz Kanata, she was computer generated in the first 2 of the last 3. Mm-hmm. In the third one, she's actually a puppet.
Oh,
she's actually a physical puppet. I
did
not.
Yeah, it doesn't make the movie better, but I mean, the one thing you can't criticize about the Disney Star Wars, which I think is a failure ultimately in the end. For me, as a longtime fan, I think it failed. I appreciate that your daughter likes it, and it'll be great to watch, all 9. Who knows what order you'll watch them in?
Yeah, but, I know. I'm deciding that.
I think the Disney Star Wars is a failure, but the one thing you cannot criticize are the special effects, the music, even the acting, the casting of. I like the new cast. I think they were completely misused, especially John Boyega as Finn. His character arc never really paid off. And if you think about it, he's murdering children that were kidnapped and forced to be stormtroopers.
Yes.
That's not what someone who was a former I thought they were going to set up that there was going to be some stormtrooper revolt. They were all going to take their masks off and reveal themselves to just be, United Colors of Benetton of the galaxy of aliens and characters and different colors and types of people, like all like taking their stormtrooper masks on and rebelling against, the authoritarian or the totalitarian dictatorship. Like. They set that up. I thought Finn was the most interesting character from The Force Awakens, and they completely misused his character. Just incredibly disappointing, and whatever. But you can't criticize the craftsmanship at all. Like it really, so I don't know. All right. We're going to do a podcast one day.
Oh,
do not talk about Star Wars.
Yeah,
this is going to happen one day.
Because you and I were there when it debuted in '76. We were both fairly young in our lives, and I think it means a lot it means something different to us than it does to people who saw it on VHF with their parents. And
well, it means a lot to me, obviously. I mean, look, it's look at my bookshelf here. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
This is only.
I can tell you all the toys I had. I had every single one of those first generation toys, and destroyed them in my backyard.
See, that was the thing I love about Star Wars toys is you played with them. They were dirty. Yeah. They were like, look, I've got right here.
Yeah.
Here, I've got a Millennium Falcon that's covered in dirt look at that, covered in dirt. And it's, I mean, this is actual. Okay, it's dirty, right? I mean, this because we played with these things.
I know.
So, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
In the package, like,
but
and I sent away for the box tops to get Boba Fett.
Oh, you did? Oh, rocket firing, huh? Pretty cool, pretty awesome.
No, I didn't have the rocket firing.
Now we're going to be doing this on a weekly basis, Alan. You and I are going to be talking about films coming out on VOD. A lot of film festivals now. We're going to be covering them in a way where we'll cover them so that we'll cover them because we're going to see the movies on, through screener links, I guess. I don't know that there'll be any big film festivals until perhaps the fall, maybe the Toronto Film Festival, but San Diego Comic-Con is a big maybe at this point. Although if I had to guess, my guess would be that it will not happen this year. That there will.
I'll put money on that.
Oh, you want to bet?
Oh, we'll bet something.
I think it will happen. You got that rocket firing Boba Fett? I'll bet you that.
I wish.
I'll bet you that.
If I had it, I wouldn't be here.
Okay, well, I bet that it's San Diego Comic-Con is not going to happen this year.
Okay. I think the city of San Diego and all the fans will rally together and make some version of it happen, but not virtually, like a physical gathering.
Maybe it'll be in the fall, although they say that the
Yeah.
virus could even return in the fall. So this may be our new normal, is movies on VOD, which I think is actually a really good, it's a good uh, time for indie movies, right? It's like so many of the big Hollywood movies have either pushed to later in the year, or in the case of Sony, I mean, they took their entire slate and just said, yeah, Ghostbusters is next year. Morbius, like all that, they moved everything to 2021. So it's a really good time to discover indie films because new ones are coming out on VOD every week. And that's what we're going to talk about. So on that note, this week, Clover comes out on VOD. And I talked to the director, John Abrams, on another episode of the podcast, which you can listen to and or watch on our YouTube channel. But what else is coming out on VOD this week, Alan?
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to bring up is it's kind of pseudo VOD. Kino Lorber has decided that they want to continue to support local art houses. And so they've been distributing a lot of films to the art houses. One is Bacurau. So what you need to do is, if you want to see that movie, you go to your local art house theater's website. In my case, it's the Frida Cinema in Santa Ana. For yours, I think it's the Lemley. You go to their website, you can purchase a rental of that movie, and then Kino Lorber and the art house will cut the fee on that rental.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting movie in of itself.
Can you put that out on the Film Threat Twitter?
Put
that out on the Film Threat Twitter, or retweet Kino Lorber where they talk about it. Just something, just to let our audience know.
There's a news item on the website now, and
okay, cool.
Last week, yeah.
I got to read the website. I read it every day. I look at it. I read. Well, you had a great interview recently with Eric Roberts, who I worked with on a weird podcast. It was bad. I'm sure you could find clips of it online. But he was awesome, right?
Yeah, I should mention it, but I interviewed him the day before the governor locked down California. So I drove to Hollywood to meet him in a hotel room and did that interview. And the nice thing was I've never seen LA traffic that great in my life.
Someone was telling me the 405 freeway, which you'll only understand this if you live in this area. The 405 freeway was virtually empty. I mean, you could skateboard down it. It's kind of nuts. And they've even said that the
streets of Hollywood were empty. Beverly Hills was empty. I mean,
oh my God. Wow.
And then, Eric Roberts and I, we sat, had our social distancing, did a in the air fist bump. So we didn't even touch that way. And,
wow.
And had a great conversation.
Cool. But what else is coming out on VOD? I mentioned Clover, which is out, which is a gritty crime drama. If you like The Irishman or films of that type, Scorsese, old school. It's definitely like a vintage movie. You will definitely be into it with a twist, which the twist is completely worth it. If you're in the middle of the movie and you're like, I'm not really into this, wait till you find out what the movie is really about. It's not what you think. This movie is completely tricking you from the beginning to the end. So well worth it. But what else is coming out on VOD this week? From an indie standpoint?
One is Banana Split.
I wanted to see that one. How is it?
It is really good. It's probably one of the smartest teen girl movies I've ever seen. And I don't watch teen girl movies, but it's one of these love triangle type films where a girl breaks up with her boyfriend. Then the boyfriend gets a new girlfriend, and then the ex becomes best friends with the new girlfriend. She first does it to kind of sabotage relationship, but then the two really become actual best friends, and they're hiding the fact from the boy that they know each other and have become deep friends. It's funny, and I would definitely suggest it if you're into teen girl movies.
Wow! Oh my God! Well, that sounds interesting. I know that I think the trailer is on the Film Threat website.
It is on the
Remember from the trailer, it was something that I wanted to check out. What else is on VOD this week?
Another one is Resistance. This is one of the
Right, that's
biggest.
the one with Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, and the thing that it's like I mentioned the review. Well, how many more Holocaust movies are we going to tell that basically tell the same story? But what threw me for a loop on this one was this is the story of Marcel Marceau, the mime.
What?
And yeah, I know. He not only was he mime, but he was a member of the French resistance against the Nazis in occupied France. And he wound up saving literally thousands of children's lives by smuggling them out of France into Switzerland. And he became a valuable asset to the U.S. Army when they eventually entered, France, trying to reclaim it. And Marcel Marceau.
Wow. Okay, well
Yeah,
that explains the trailer then. I saw the trailer and I'm like, what is this movie? But I've always liked Jesse Eisenberg as an actor. He always makes very interesting choices as an actor.
And he's a serviceable Marcel Marceau. I mean, he has to do one like big mime routine of Marcel's, and he pulls it off. He's no Marcel Marceau.
Wow, cool. Well, Alan, anything else?
Let me see. The last one I would mention is on Netflix, the movie Justine. It's about a woman whose husband dies in a military accident. She's having a hard time, one, trying to figure out what happened, and two, trying to deal with the death of her husband. And then she has two kids. They have to live like in the middle of Central California with her father-in-law, and she's just so angry that she can't get a job, and the only job she can get is to care for a little girl with spina bifida. And it's one of those stories where then she starts to learn a little more about herself, and the idea that she's taking better care of this girl in a wheelchair than she is of her own two children. And this is on Netflix. And the reason I bring it up is, this is one of those amazing festival films that you watch and you realize, well, no one's ever gonna see this movie. And somehow this film got in front of Ava DuVernay, who then bought the film and then got it on Netflix. And one of the things I talked to the director, Stephanie Turner, and she mentioned that it was our review of her film, along with the film itself, that she gave to Ava. And it was those two things that helped her convince her to basically purchase the film and then do what they did with it. So it's just one of those stories of, if you make one of these films, there's hope out there. There's, if the quality is good, excuse me, you can get someone to see it, and you never know, you may just hit the lottery with it.
Well, I mean, the one we've always tried to do is support indie filmmakers at Film Threat. If you are an indie filmmaker and you are watching this now, go to filmthreat.com, click on submit, and we will review anything. While the major media outlets cover only the major films, we will cover any indie film, everything from like trauma movies to the big films as well. But I do take a lot of pride and am proud of the fact that we are big champions for indie movies. And I do feel like you need to have a balanced diet. If you only live on Marvel movies and Star Wars movies, that's not enough. That's not enough. If your life consists of Marvel, Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, that's not enough. That's like eating fast food every day. And someone made a movie about that, Morgan Spurlock.
Yeah.
Super Size Me. But I think that you need to have a balanced media diet as well as a balanced diet when it comes to what you eat. So what you put in your brain, just have a mix. If you're disappointed in, this latest superhero movie didn't satisfy me, you need to go out and see some more indie films. And we'll be talking about them every week.
Remember, like you said before, the big studio films aren't going to be coming out for a long time. And, we have a very, go to the Film Threat website and you're going to see films that are coming out on VOD, Tuesdays and Fridays. So check our website out. You'll see what's available to you, and you'll find some gems that you just would never expect to think that you'd want to see, but you're going to love.
Well, I love that. Alan Ng, managing editor of Film Threat, thank you for joining me for this special episode of the Film Threat podcast. We're going to do this every week.
Yeah.
So follow us and check us out. And thanks for watching, everyone.